Yo, what is up guys, it's Master 2010 here, and today I am going to be fulfilling my promise I made on my last Red vs Blue video, and I'm going to do a review for Red vs Blue Season 18 or Red vs Blue 0. Now, it's been around maybe 10, 12, 13 days since the season ended, and it's given me a lot of the time to process certain things, look at the entire season all over from start to finish with a completely non-biased point of view, because obviously if you've seen my reactions I was not a big fan of it, but I'm looking at it from a completely impartial perspective and not letting my bias on Red vs Blue get in the way of an actual truthful review of what I feel this season has done so far, what it's done for the series as a whole, what it's done for itself, and see how it compares to the previous seasons of Red vs Blue. Now I'm going to do a quick recap of the entire season and breaking it down bit by bit and letting you know how I thought of it. Now, we start off in Red vs Blue 0 with Washington and Carolina, some of the show's strongest characters, both literally and figuratively. They are transporting an object of unknown origin that we only know as the Artifact at this point. But it doesn't go smoothly, as Carolina and Washington are quickly attacked by the antagonists of this season. The first bad guy we are introduced to is Diesel, and it is clear from the get-go that he is an unstoppable tank with near unlimited strength and knife vulnerability. And of course, being the unstoppable tank that he is, he quickly bulldozes his way past the regular grunts and guards of the base, and makes a complete mess of things until Washington shows up first on the scene with two other grunts who are both carrying rocket launchers. When those rocket launchers fire and hit him square in the face, this guy just shrugs it off. I mean, seriously, this guy gives the meta a run for his money when it comes to how tough he is. It also becomes clear at this point that the reason this guy is so tough has got to have something to do with his armor, as every time he takes damage from something like a rocket launcher, it glows blue and he seems to be getting a power boost. Needless to say, he does get past Washington and further into the base, and that is when we are introduced to bad guy number 2, FaZe. FaZe herself also seems to have some sort of special ability, which is a knife that she can always teleport to. Now, she is a very complicated character, and we'll go into her more detail a bit later, but right now all you need to know is she's the speed to Diesel's brawn, and she even seems to be very good at martial arts, given that fact she's holding her own against someone like Carolina. And of course the fight goes on bit by bit, and then we're introduced to the primary protagonist of this season, Zero. It's then we realise that Carolina is very much outmatched as she gets her ass handed to her by the entire trio, as Washington is down for the count pretty early by Diesel. And I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty ballsy doing that, because Carolina is like one of the best fighters in the show, and her getting her ass handed to her that quickly is pretty ballsy, and I actually do respect it. The action cuts to black, and we are quickly introduced to the protagonists of this season, Shatter Squad, a team of well-trained soldiers that consisting of their leader, West, the rookie, Raymond, One, Axel, and East. And these guys, they're pretty actually well done. I mean, they have fun, but when it's time to be serious, they all immediately switch into soldier mode and they start acting like true soldiers. A very rare thing for Red vs Blue. You really don't see that. I mean, even the freelancers never acted like that, and it is kind of refreshing. And honestly, I had no problem with that. That was no trouble whatsoever. It was actually quite endearing, and I wish sometimes they do that more often in the Red vs Blue seasons. Needless to say, you know where this is going, and next episode kicks off with Carolina in the hospital, realizing Washington has been taken and that Shatter Squad has been assigned to track down and locate Washington along with those who kidnapped him, codenamed Viper. What follows next is the pretty basic, standard introduction to each of these characters in the form of a training montage, and we find out that each of these characters have their own individual strengths and relationships with each other, the most prominent of them being that West, the leader of Shatter Squad, is East's biological father, something that gets a lot more complicated later down the line, but here we are. And of course, Carolina, seeing this, immediately wants to jump into the action and completely owns One and East, who are the primary fighters of Shatter Squad, or at the very least, the primary martial arts fighters. It's also during this that we realise that Shatter Squad is not just a random collection of terrible soldiers lobbed together like the Red vs Blues. They are a highly trained team of specialists that are almost on par with the freelancers, if just a little bit below on the spectrum, but they each have their individual problems. For example, East, for example, being pretty much a stereotypical 18-year-old teenager with daddy issues, One, being completely unable to work together as a team. Very Carolina of her, I'm not going to lie, I thought that was a nice little trick to add in there. Raymond, although being very skilled on the technical side, has next to no fighting experience whatsoever, and thus he's the weakest fighter on the team. And Axel being almost unable to trust himself after a previous failure in his past, and a good opportunity for character development later down the line. And it's during this time we meet one of the primary problems I have with this season, as during this training montage and introduction of characters, we're also given a bit more time with the antagonists of the season, as One and FaZe are entering what can only be described as a Dungeons and Dragons map. I mean, seriously, there's rocky caves, lava, big metal doors, and we are introduced with the enemy robots that are honestly just like rendered down versions of the Promethean Knights from the Halo 5 and 4. I'm telling you, the thing could pass for a damn raid on World of Warcraft. I mean, seriously, even the boss drops loot. And we also get a little bit of an idea of the new armor abilities that someone has. Zero seems to have the ability to teleport short distances, which can make for a very honestly well animated fight scene, and East has a type of speed boost that she uses to her advantage, but can also extremely tire her out and damage her armor. The montage continues into the next episode, where we see Carolina looking down at One and East and decide to join in. And what follows next is a fairly well done fight scene between One, East and Carolina, and East and One do hold their own. In fact, they start to win the fight later down the line when they work together. But when Carolina calls them out on it, with that subtle Matrix come here and get some gesture, they both get really a bit hot-headed and they go in on their own, and Carolina easily systematically takes them down individually and wins the fight. Of course, them losing the fight results into a little cat fight between One and East, as they constantly bitch to each other about how they need to work on a team, but they each do a better job of it. And of course, while this is happening, Raymond and West are infiltrating a facility to try and find more information on Washington, and they do find him, but they also have a run-in with Diesel, and West decides to take the reins because obviously Raymond can't fight Diesel because he has no fighting experience. And while West doesn't win the fight, he also doesn't lose it, as he's very capable of holding his own, surprisingly, against someone like Diesel. And Diesel retreats, but it's found out that he only did that because Zero ordered him to. While the antagonists all gather together to plan their next step in their master plan, it's also revealed that FaZe has some kind of connection to West as well, and she seems to have a personal grudge against him, and we don't yet know what it is at this time, but it is very personal and very hateful, as she really wants to kill West. And the mission ends in a cliffhanger as Shatter Squad leave to have their first mission against Viper, and it involves a car chase, and it also ends just as Zero and Axel confront one another, and it is very clear those two have a history. I'll spare you the details, but what you need to know is that Zero and Axel were friends, then they were enemies. Zero chose not to kill Axel when he easily could have. Axel did not return the favour, and Axel thought Zero was dead. Turns out he wasn't dead. That's pretty much all you need to know at this point. The following episode is a non-stop action set piece, which honestly is pretty good. It gives us some time for heroes and villains to fight one-on-one for the first time. Needless to say, the heroes do not do a very good job at all, as Zero, in one of my favourite action set pieces of this season, completely bitch slaps all of Shatter Squad and makes himself feel more powerful by how amazing he is. He also gets to use that new sword he loses from that monster drop in the last raid. But once all is said and done, the heroes don't die because Zero likes to torture them a little bit more, make them live with the defeat as he talks shit to them. But it's also when he reveals his sword that someone makes a connection, as when everyone's back at base, One reports the sword to Carolina, who makes the connection that there is also someone who has a glowing energy sword that was made by aliens, and decides that Tucker needs to be protected before Viper can attack him. What follows, however, is without a doubt a complete and utter clusterfuck, as Red vs. Blue Zero completely butchers one of the most beloved members of the Reds and Blues. As Tucker, in his time, has seemed to have gotten worse at fighting than he has ever been in his past, and honestly, it's really fucking annoying. Needless to say, Viper comes to the base and attacks Tucker as Shatter Squad arrive to protect him. Does Tucker fight Viper? No. Does he try to? No. Does he use his sword once? Yes. For literally 2 seconds of frame when he has it out. and then he puts it away, then he runs away with Shatter Squad, because apparently he does not like fighting at all. I mean, this is the guy who took on an entire band of mercenaries on his own. I mean, Locus and Felix, and another section of Red vs. Blues. I mean, I know he's not as skilled as freelancers, he's not even probably as skilled as members of Shatter Squad, but he's not exactly weak. And he has a glowing energy sword that can cut through pretty much everything, as it has done in the past. Why didn't you use him just one fucking time? It's just so annoying. I mean, you could have at least had him have a go at fighting, but nope, it's immediately run away. Oh yeah, it apparently also becomes clear that having that sword that he looted from that boss, apparently Zero now has access to weird machine demon monsters that do his bidding. But what seems to be a saving grace with this season is that all the bad storytelling is really saved or kept together at the very least by the fighting, choreography and animations. As what follows is a pretty well done fight between FaZe and the rest of Shatter Squad as they drive to the nearest Pelican so they can get Tucker to safety. And I'm not gonna lie, that is really one of the best fight scenes in this season. It's my second favourite next to the one in the last episode. But just as they win, the twist of the season happens and East stabs Tucker in the gut. And then she and FaZe phase into one person? Yeah, I'm still completely confused by that. I don't know how having a split personality gives you an extra body. And they didn't really explain it. The next episode kicks off with a very big ball slap to the lore of Red vs. Blue. As do you guys remember in Chorus when it was pretty much set in stone that the sword will only work for someone else if Tucker is dead first? You do remember that, don't you? And let's not forget, we're talking about an ancient alien civilization that apparently has access to demon monsters. So, maybe just flatlining one time for a couple of seconds and then coming back doesn't exactly cover that. I'd also like everyone to remember that Locus has himself an energy sword as well, but he's not brought up once ever. And honestly, another missed opportunity there, because it would have been a very good opportunity for Locus to be brought in and even become a member of Shatter Squad later down the line, as he's currently on his own and a very badass fighter in his own right. What follows is the once again stereotypical down in the dumps episode. They've just lost two major defeats, they're feeling hopeless, they don't know what to do, but Zero calls them to talk shit once again, and one decides to give an inspirational speech that turns the entire thing around, and they go off to fight the bad guys once again. During this time, Viper goes on another World of Warcraft raid to get some more loot, and they do a pretty good job of that, fighting a bunch of demon monsters, killing the big bad guy, and getting some more loot. And the season finale for this season is a part 1, part 2. Part 1 consisting of Shatter Squad plus Carolina fighting their way through the raid that Viper just went through in the hopes to get some more loot for themselves, but as they go further and further in, the team gets split up to deal with different enemies. Carolina decides to take on Diesel as opposed for a vengeance for Washington, which is the only reason they could have for this, because West logically should be fighting Diesel because he's the tank of the team, but he needs to go further on to face his daughter. And spoiler alert, that's what happens when they come across FaZe. West stays behind to deal with her, but he's not really fighting her. And of course, the rest, including Axel, Raymond, and One, go up to face against Zero. Zero, who himself has just completed the raid and now has the final piece of the puzzle he's been looking for, and now has a helmet to go with the sword, but it seems the helmet inhabits some sort of alien demon slash ghost slash spirit slash AI. No idea what the fuck that thing is, but apparently he's supposed to pass a test in order to prove he's worthy of the power. That test is killing the people who just broke into the temple when he just got the power. So yeah, I don't know if a test for him to have the power is to give him the power and see how he can use it, which seems pointless considering he has the power now, so what's the point of the test? And of course, this would not be a finale without some upgrades. Diesel gets a pretty cool energy hammer. FaZe splits herself into two people and can fight her dad as a partnership of herself and herself, which is not explained in any way, shape or form. West himself has four panels on his back that kind of act like big shields, but they also kind of look like wings. Thankfully though, instead of just being a non-stop action fest like the last couple of chapters, this one does have a bit more story to it. As West is fighting with FaZe, it shows you can really feel the emotion coming off these two characters as they talk to each other. West does not want to fight his daughter, and FaZe wants to absolutely beat the shit out of her dad, but it becomes clear she does not want to kill him. after being very easily able to, she literally just drops the knife and just starts punching him over and over again because she doesn't want to kill him. She just wants him to feel pain, and it's a very, very well done piece of character development that I wish they had done all this time this season, but this looks like it was a one-off. Part 2 of the season final kicks off with Carolina and Diesel's fight, and it is quickly becoming clear that thanks to a bit of new tech, Carolina is going to win the fight against Diesel, which she does. She wins the fight and avenges Washington, even though Washington isn't dead, but she gets to get her ego back a little bit, as proven once again that she is the best of the best. Now that fight's over and done with, we kick off with Axel, Raymond, and One taking on the new powered up Zero. But unlike last time when Zero was taking on the entirety of Shatter Squad and absolutely beat the shit out of them, even though there's less of them, because they're working as a team now, they managed to hold their own against him. And of course, Raymond boosts their armor abilities a little bit more because reasons. So, don't know why he didn't do that at the beginning. Apparently, boosting the armor gives a better chance in a fight, but the more you use the power of the newly improved armor, the more chance you have of passing out and injuring yourself, which does not happen once, like at all in this entire video. I mean, Raymond could have just not said that, and I doubt anything would have changed. The fight itself is pretty good as well. It's well choreographed. It's well animated. Once again, the fighting of this season is the only thing keeping it together. And just before the fight can get too intense, Carolina joins in, wielding the giant axe that Diesel had, which is weird because it would mean she ran past West and FaZe as they were fighting and just chose to ignore it, I guess? I mean, I get that West would want to do it on its own, tell her to move on, but it just seems very weird for Carolina to just literally run past one of her teammates fighting their daughters in a fight to the death. Well, it's not a fight to the death, but she probably thought it would be a fight to the death, given that she didn't hear the very heart-wrenching conversation they had as they were fighting. But that doesn't matter. Now that Carolina is here, the team has a much better chance of fighting against Zero. And they do. They do a very good job fighting against him, so much so that the alien AI inside inside Zero's helmet is starting to doubt whether or not Zero can handle the power and keeps on appearing to him and almost kind of... It's either a mix of mocking and talking up, because yeah, they get really intense when they argue about who has the power, who deserves to have the power, etc, etc. However, it gets even worse for Zero as later down the line, FaZe turns up after her fight with her dad and decides to switch sides, becoming a good person again. Though this time she is a full person, and the entirety of Shatter Squad plus Carolina and FaZe move in on Zero and beat him up. Needless to say, the alien monster ghost AI thing is not happy with how Zero is getting beaten, so he basically teleports Zero away to come back later for another series. And that's pretty much it. The Shatter Squad go home, they're a team again, they're all very happy, yay for everyone. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is Red vs. Blue Zero. And now that we have a basic idea of what this season is, it's time to go down the brutally honest path and just be honest when I say that this season is just a collection of missed opportunities and disappointing moments. Now, that's not to say everything was bad about the season. It had some good moments. The main problem with this season was its storytelling. Now, I don't know the whole picture about what happened within Rooster Teeth that caused the main cast of Red vs. Blue voice actors to leave, or to quit, or to get another job, or whatever the hell happened that made them no longer able to be the voices of Red vs. Blue. And I am assuming that is why they are doing a new Red vs. Blue season completely separate from the original stories of Red vs. Blue that we all know and we all love so very much. But one of the problems that this story is easily giving off is that it doesn't know what it wants to be. Is this Red vs. Blue? Is this RWBY set 1,000 years in the future where everyone has superpowers? Is this some weird World of Warcraft Dungeons and Dragons bullshit where it has space marines? Oh, but yeah, this isn't about the Reds and the Blues. This is about Shatter Squad and brand new team of all new characters. But then you bring in Carolina for all of the season. She's there for all of it. You bring in Washington for most of it. You bring in Tucker, and you just do him dirty like that. So obviously you don't want to be really moving on from Red vs. Blue if you keep on bringing them in so much. And one of the most annoying things is that could work if they had done it right. If they had done it right, it could have worked so well. I mean, we've been told that a few years have passed since the last season of Red vs. Blue. We don't know how many exactly, but it's safe to assume it could be anywhere from 1 to 7 or something. I mean, Carolina and Washington make no real signs that they've aged quite a bit. Which, again, you could have done. you could have had Carolina in the hospital, but instead of being in full body armor with a cast over her armor, which was the stupidest thing ever, you could have seen it in a military uniform. You could have like added some grey streaks to her hair. It's not like you haven't shown us what she looks like. We know what she looks like. You could have just developed it a little bit more. It wouldn't have been bad. It would have been a very cool moment where we actually see, holy shit, Carolina's gotten old. Like, that could have been a really amazing thing. And you could have gone even further and not said anything, but you could have put a wedding ring on her finger. Because at the end of last season, Red vs. Blue, or the one before that, she and Wash did say they loved each other. I know they didn't specify in what type of love that was, whether it was like very intimate or brother-sister kind of thing. But you could have just done that and it would have worked. Nobody would have questioned it because it's believable. And Carolina, instead of going out onto missions with them, she could have honestly just stuck to the mentor role of training these young soldiers how to fight properly, especially when one of those soldiers, one, is exactly like she was back in Project Freelancer. She was on her own, she was competitive, they were mirrors of each other, and it would have been such a good moment for Carolina to actually mentor someone who was essentially her when she was younger. And you could have even gone a step further than that and not bring Tucker in at all, because even though they were looking for an energy sword, Tucker is not the only one who has an energy sword. Locust, another well-known character from the Chorus trilogy, and another past that, is carrying an energy sword. He has one, he's earned that sword, and he knows how to use it. And the best part is, if they had went to him instead of Tucker, Locust could have stayed with Shatter Squad. How amazing would that have been? Instead of Carolina in the final mission going with the team, it would be Locust, him working with a team that he hasn't done since Felix. And how amazing would that be? This character who we already know, who has already got a really cool backstory, a very good character-driven moments, and has got good development, joining a team again. How amazing would that have been to see him fighting the massive tank Diesel instead of Carolina? And to make matters even worse for Rooster Teeth, because this makes it even better, what is the one type of soldier Shatter Squad is missing? A sharpshooter and a stealth soldier. And what are the two things Locust is known for? A sniper and a cloaking device. Holy shit, how amazing would that have been? He would be the missing link in that team. And this way, the memory of Tucker, many people's favourite characters, remains intact as he doesn't just get turned into an absolute bitch. Because let's be honest, that's what Rooster Teeth did. I don't know why they wanted to ruin Tucker's reputation, but they have, and now Tucker, in canon, Red vs. Blue, lost his sword. One of the main things about him, one of his two remaining character traits, a wannabe ladies man, and he has a sword. You lost him the sword, and you lost it in the stupidest way he could have lost it. I can tell you this as well, because even though they had to get the sword in order to move the plot forward, Locust would not have lost that sword without a fight like Tucker did. I can promise you that. And it would have been amazing to see Locust fight someone like Diesel or East or hell, even one. Because Locust can fight. He's on par with Carolina and Washington because they have fought before and he's held his own. It would have been so amazing just to see Locust again fighting for the good, honestly, for the good fight. But you want to know what the weirdest part is? This isn't my biggest problem with the season. It's my second biggest problem. But it's not. The biggest problem for me is what Zero, FaZe and Diesel are doing. It's not why they're doing it, it's how it's happening. I mean, this is the Red vs. Blue universe. This is the Halo universe. I know Red vs. Blue is not canon in the Halo story, but let's be honest, it is Halo. And Red vs. Blue has never strayed that far away from the original plot point of the Halo games. Humanity at war with the Covenant. That was it. That was the driving force of Red vs. Blue for like the first 7 seasons. And even then, a little bit beyond that. But what they're doing right now, entering this weird Dungeons and Dragons bullshit with caves and lava and weird demon robot hybrid monster things, it makes no logical sense. It goes completely against the law of Red vs. Blue, because you can't change what's already been canonized within Red vs. Blue unless Rooster Teeth just comes out and say, oh yeah, the rest of Red vs. Blue, that didn't happen, this is just it. And once again, the problem is easily solvable. All you have to do is replace the caves and the lava with those nice sleek silver walls from the Foreigners in Halo 4 and 5. Replace the demon monsters with Prometheans or even just regular aliens like you've done in the past, and the problems would be completely solved. There would be no issues, but you're just not doing that because you're just trying to be so different. from what Red vs. Blue is supposed to be. That you're just being ridiculous about this. This is a sci-fi with aliens and lasers and space marines, and now we're just talking shit in caves with lava. There's no reason for that to happen. You could just do some like really advanced alien spaceship or bunker, but no, we're just going straight into Dungeons and Dragons, and I cannot think of a really good reason as to why. I could if it was a few seasons ago when the Red vs. Blue videos were based on Halo maps from the multiplayer. Then that could have been believable. But because this is an entirely animated season, they could have done whatever they wanted, but they chose willingly to do this, and it's very out of character for what Red vs. Blue is supposed to be. And yes, I know this is not Red vs. Blue, this is Red vs. Blue 0. Completely different, but like I said before, it's not completely different because you're forcing them together while saying they're not the same thing. So as you probably realise at this point, the overall story of this season is its weakest factor, at least for me personally, because there's so many things that could have been done better, and I cannot get over it. I've tried, I really have, but I just cannot ignore the fact they easily could have done this, but they didn't. Okay, now let's talk about the animation. Honestly, I didn't really have a problem with the animation for this season. I thought the animation was very well done. There are only two things wrong with the animation that kind of play on me just a little bit. Two very simple things that could easily be overlooked. Number one is that despite this is completely animated, it's completely done from scratch, they are still trying to do the Red vs. Blue talking animations. Like that thing where they hold their pistols down to the ground, they just nod up and down with their entire bodies. I don't know why they're doing that. There's no need to do that. They only did that in the first couple of seasons because they didn't animate the entire thing and it was easier and cheaper. I mean, you saw what they were doing when it was the Freelancer seasons, when we got to see Freelance at its peak and then it's being brought down. They were completely animated, but they weren't doing the weird thing where they were aiming their pistols at the ground, just shaking up and down. Actually, you know what? I'm going to call that RWBY animation. From now on, when I'm talking about the standard holding a pistol, pointing it downwards and moving the entire body to speak, that is RWBY animation. Classic Red vs. Blue animation, okay? And there's no reason for that to be in the season. I cannot think of a reason why that would be there. It doesn't even look right. It legit looks ridiculous compared to how it's supposed to be. Just don't do it. It's weird. And the other minor bug I have with the animation is the gestures people make while they talk. And I know because they're wearing helmets and full body armor, they need to have some form of physical expression to convey what they're saying and who's saying what. But it's ridiculous. It's way over the top and it's not needed. I admit it did get a little bit better further down the line, but in the first few episodes, it was ridiculous. People don't do that. I mean, why can't they just... Whoever did the animation for this season is either brand new or just didn't do their research. Because, like I said, the Freelancer seasons are a very good template to use with fully animated Red vs. Blue. Yeah, they talked. They did a little bit of gestures here and there, but it wasn't that bad. It wasn't literally waving your arms around non-stop for every word. People don't do that. You don't need to do that. It could be very basic nods of the head, a slight wave of their hand, but not raising their entire arms and pointing left and right, back and forth for like 5 minutes. It's not needed. But thankfully, that's all I really have to say about the bad stuff about the animation. The rest of it was, I'm not gonna lie guys, it was pretty well done. I mean, the set pieces for each episode were very well done. I loved the flashback between Zero and Axel, where it's dark, it's raining. That was very well done. I could believe that was part of like a TV series or something, or a cinematic for an actual Halo game, because it was really well done. And although I do hate the way they used lava and dungeons and caves, it was well designed. It was very good looking. I can't fault that. I really can't. The animations did a very good job. And of course, let's talk about the best thing about this season. What really held this season up is the combat. Whoever did the combat of this season, who did the choreography and all that, deserves a raise, because they are the only reason I'm speaking highly of this. It was spot on. It might be the best hand-to-hand fighting in Red vs. Blue. I am not kidding when I say that. It was very well done. It beats out, or is at least on par with the Freelancer fights when we used to see like Tex and Carolina fight a bunch of grunts, or fighting each other in that little sparring session they did that one time when Tex, took over the ship and Carolina died. You get what I'm saying. Comparing those two together, I honestly would not be able to pick which one is better. The only time it got a little bit naff was when he went into like anime mode and got like bombs and lasers and he used the sword. But yeah, apart from that, these fight scenes were excellent. Seriously, props to whoever was in charge of that. You deserve a raise. You're the only reason I have something good to say about this season. Now, when it comes down to the characters, that's a more tricky question. I didn't really feel anything for the villains. They were just basic villains. They only wanted power. They didn't hint that there was anything more to it. The only thing we got was that Zero used to be part of some weird experiment, and that's why he apparently hates everyone and just wants more power. It's very basic, very unoriginal. I mean, it's not something to think much about. But the heroes, well, they had some moments in there. I like the way one, from the start up to at the end, started to develop like a more of a leadership role. But they didn't really explain why she was becoming more of a leader. I mean, they didn't show her having any real emotional moments where she says, I don't want to play by the rules because I'm best and I'm on my own. They don't give a reason as to why she acts like that. Why she just wants to do things on her own. They never tell us why. And they never give us a piece of character development where she says, you know what, I was wrong. Let's do this as a team. And I don't think you can count East's betrayal as doing that. I honestly don't think it counts. And yeah, there was a few bits and pieces here, but not enough to add up to her. You know what? I'm going to be a part of this team because teams are what's better. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, West, he was a pretty good character, but his only like real area of character development was admitting that the scientific government body that he sent his daughter to, that possibly put her through torturous experimentation to keep her alive, probably wasn't the best idea. And Raymond and Diesel and that big mechanic chick, we didn't get anything from them. They were kind of just along for the ride. I mean, Diesel literally only said like one sentence the entire season. There was no development on any of them. Axel, a little bit, but again, not very much. I don't think learning about his past counts as development. So they're all out. Zero, a little bit. He got a little bit more into it for the desire for power. But again, I mean, there's not really development. We just figured out how much he really, really wanted that power. So again, it wasn't really a lot of development in that area either. So, yeah, characters, it wasn't the best. FaZe and East, they were better. That had a really good piece of character development. Especially my favourite part about this season, or one of my favourite parts about the season, is when she's fighting West. And she has the chance to kill him, but she doesn't. And she literally just starts punching him over and over again, like just because she wants him to feel pain. That is an incredible piece of character development, and I loved it. But apart from that, there's not much. And I know that's probably not what a lot of you wanted to hear, but to me, this is just the case. Red vs. Blue Zero is just, story-wise, it's a garbled mess of missed opportunities that doesn't really know what it's supposed to be. So saying that, I would give Red vs. Blue Zero a 5 out of 10. It is an average series. It is just average. It has some good combat, some good animation, but the story is just ridiculously bad. It's just stupid. It's just a disappointment. And I know a lot of you are not going to agree with me on this, but I just cannot think of it as any other way. Red vs. Blue Zero is a disappointment. It is a 5 out of 10. It is average at best. If you disagree with that, then please let me know in the comments down below. I will read every comment that comes down. I usually do read most of them. So yeah, it's been Master 2010. If you want to play anything else, or react to anything else, or review anything else while I'm here, put it in the comments as well. Please like, subscribe, and see ya.